If you're a Genshin Impact or Honkai Star Rail fan, you've definitely seen this person. Meet Sevy, one of the most popular, informative, and entertaining Hoyoverse content creators and guide makers on YouTube. In just a couple of years, Sevy has grown SevyPlays, amassing more than 220,000 subscribers who are hooked to her character guides, abyss tips, and thoughts on the game overall. She does all this through an easy to understand format plus her extremely wholesome personality. How does one become an authority on one of the world's most popular games? Listen on to our interview with Sevy to find out. This is the 20M Podcast. Welcome to the 20M Podcast, a show about video games and the people behind them. I am your co-host for today. My name is Rino. We have Arief.
Hello.
No, normally you get mad at me when I go say hello.
Because I'm so afraid because sometimes I want to say a bigger spiel and then you just go on with the next thing. So
because
I'm just
we
going
have
to go
someone
on.
more important than us
I know,
waiting.
but it's
So
like,
I'm
okay, you know what?
Let's go. All right, today we have a special guest with us. We have Sevy.
Hello.
How are you doing
I'm trying
today?
to emulate like a crowd, just like raging.
I'm doing well today. It's a good time. Yeah.
It's a good time. So I guess like from my side, I'm a huge fan, and this is not the first time we've spoken, but each time I'm always blown away by how brilliant, kind, smart, funny you are, and also the fact that we're both big Genshin Impact and Star Rail fans. But I guess for those of our listeners who might not be familiar with your content or who you are, do you want to give a quick spiel about what you do?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so I'm Sevy, and my channels are usually SevyPlays, something along that line. And I make gameplay guides for Genshin Impact and Honkai Star Rail. And you can find me on YouTube, Twitch, other social media platforms. I also stream, so I have less guide, like more casual content as well. But really, the heart of my content and what I got quote unquote known for is making those guides. So they're like character builds, Spiral Abyss, things like those.
That's super cool. I think it's like on behalf of like the entire community that's relying on your support. It's like thank you, especially for me, my builds would have been nowhere without your guides. You're very, very helpful.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I was saying this like before we started recording, but like when I was getting back into Genshin, I was just watching guides of how to optimize my characters, and your guides have been so helpful to me. But again, it goes back to the like, if a dummy like me, if you can speak to a dummy like me and like, like codify and like you make all this information that's incredibly complex easy for me to understand, it's like that's a great content creator, that's a great guide maker. So the fact that I was able to comprehend like how to build my characters using your guides is just like, wow, I'm so like this is just like really good content. Yeah. But again, like your stuff is like been great, but you know what, one thing I'm super surprised by, it's like this is if I'm not mistaken like a 2-year journey for you getting into creating content. Like that's such a fast, like to be one of the bigger Genshin, Star Rail, Hoyoverse creators, like that's flipping awesome, to get that all in 2 years.
Thank you.
Yeah, I guess like maybe we can start to hear a bit more about your origin story. Like how did you start? What was the idea, I guess, to make this channel for guides? Are you much of a gamer outside of Genshin? Like how did you get started?
Well, the funny thing is I'm actually not that much of a gamer outside of Genshin. My history with games has been pretty limited to Pokemon games on crappy emulators, like on my computer and on my like tiny mobile phone, and Minecraft. Like for maybe 7 years, my sole game was Minecraft. And I am the type of person that will get obsessed with one game and then not really let it go, and who's even hesitant to try new games just because I prefer familiarity and comfort over trying to build like gamer skills and things like that, which sounds pretty ironic now. But so my gaming history isn't that great. And I say this a lot, actually, like when I talk to my community that, okay, some meta standpoint things or some comparative things, like I'm not the best person to talk to because I don't actually have a lot of experience with different varieties of games. I haven't played a ton of gacha games. I haven't played a ton of real-time action games. And my turn-based game experience is limited to Star Rail, Pokemon, and now Octopath Traveler and Fire Emblem. But when it comes to content creation, actually, I'm not that new to it because ever since I was a teenager, I would like record audio and video song covers. I would like sing a lot and I play instruments, and then I would upload those on a YouTube channel just for fun, and they'd get like 50 views or like 100 views from my friends. And then sometime in my later teen years, I also tried doing like vlogs and makeup tutorials and stuff on Instagram and YouTube. And like, again, these were things that never really took off. And I got experience like making stuff, like editing stuff and taking videos of stuff and like trying to, put them in sequence so that they were watchable. But it wasn't until I hit the Genshin Impact niche that I realized that, okay, there is some marketing skill involved here. There is some algorithm and SEO and trying to figure out trends, like more audience analysis stuff, which I never really took into account in my earlier days of content creation. So yeah, like those parts of content aren't new to me. What is new to me is like actually having an audience and then trying to like meet their, not necessarily demands, but like their requests or what they are looking for and what they actually want to watch and want to talk about. Because like Genshin Impact is a niche, and I guess this goes for other games as well, where you really want to talk about the current thing. Sure, you can have evergreen videos where like some of my guides are evergreen because people will search up the character. People are always acquiring certain characters like 4 stars and stuff like that. But it's kind of important to be in tune. So my origin story with Genshin, I guess, is that my partner got into Genshin and then convinced me to try out Genshin. and I didn't like, so my partner got into Genshin as soon as it launched, and like he got Venti, right? And then he showed me the Klee trailer, and I was like, what the hell is this? Why are you showing me this child blowing up stuff? So I wasn't sold yet. But then he showed me the Zhongli trailer, and I was like, okay, that's it. Like that trailer smacked. Like it was so good. So I was like, okay, get me in there. And like I tried it and I fell in love with it, very, very easily. And the thing is, like, Genshin came out October of 2020.
Yep.
Yeah. So I started my channels on March 2021 because in that same note, like my partner was also like, people are streaming this a lot and like making videos a lot. So like, why don't you try? And at first I was hesitant because I have never done any gaming content before. I didn't know what it was about. But I was watching Genshin Impact content. And one of the people that inspired me a lot was Dish, actually, because she was like one of the popular like women content creators in the niche. And at first I wanted to try like the entertainment personality based content where, you do something or you have an idea and then like you try to make moments out of it and it really becomes like comforting or personal or entertaining. And that's really what she specializes at. And the thing is, like, I didn't have enough entertaining experience to do that because like I generally don't think of myself as like a funny person. So I tried that for a while and it wasn't really clicking or anything. But then there were like new weapons coming out, and that one, I decided to try testing, like do a very simple comparison. And it was a very tight concept, and it was straightforward to execute, but then people appreciated it. So that's what I started doing. I tried it with a couple other weapons, and then I tried it with like a character, and then it kind of went on from there.
I think there are so many things here that I want to talk about. Like, firstly, it's so important to, I guess, be transparent and hear, because to a lot of people who come across your channel, they're like, wow, she got this much success in 2 years, but it's actually like, no, it's built on so many years of trying so many different things and finding your niche. And even once you found Genshin, it was like, what within Genshin is suitable to your personality, your skill set, and all those things, right?
Yeah.
And then Dish is amazing. And I think like both of you just being like female voices in the community, again, gaming just tends to be very male dominated. Even in something like Genshin, it does still seem to skew towards men. And the whole like, the theory crafting side, which we'll get into later, and guide making, a lot of it tends to be dominated by male voices. So it's so refreshing and so helpful to consume your content and be like, hey, this is like very pleasant, not at all toxic, and very approachable for people of various skill sets. I think that's what makes your content really great.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a lot of what I aim for. Like, trying to have that approachability and that ease of like absorbing the actual information.
I think what's like super interesting, and maybe we could take a step back in general of like why I think your content is also so awesome, just from a consumer perspective, right? Is that like I think guides, again, when it serves a purpose of you need information, you need to get to point B, and you're at point A right now. Like, here's the information you need to get to that side. Like, I think that's from a consumer perspective. It's like, yeah, sometimes I just want to click the guy YouTube videos or guys just like, okay, just give me the information. Just tell me what to equip on this character, right? But I think the really interesting thing about you, Sevy, is that I feel like you do have that like creator persona, that like friendly, open kind of like undertones, that even though some of your videos might be just like guide and technical oriented, and it does like, it's really each part of the video is trying to get you to point B. There's like, it's the way that you craft your videos and your tone and just like the small stuff that you do that I feel like gives you also personality when you do your guides. So I just want to say that it's like, it's a calming kind of like refreshing thing, because sometimes I get overwhelmed by guides that are just like, okay, just like all this information is just so overwhelmed. But I feel like when you do your videos, it's like you're kind of like easing the community into this information, which I think is a very fascinating skill, right? So I just want to say like kudos on your side for like, even though you might not, when you said experimenting with like entertainment style, personality based like videos, I feel like there's a middle ground that you're embedding in some of your guide videos, which is awesome.
Oh, thank you. That's actually the first time I've heard that. So that's cool.
That's a great point, Arief, because like a lot of the Genshin creators, especially in the guide space, the ones that really rise to the top, I feel, are the ones who do inject some personality. So you've got like Praxophone, his videos are pretty funny. Like he kind of drops he like drops the mic sometimes on like a funny bit. I'm like, oh, that's so cool. And then like Ziox as well, he's like really serious in his guide videos, and then he's like really insane on like his other channel, and like that separation is just like incredible. But I think it's like people come for the guys, but they stay for who the personality is, which is really cool. The other thing as well I want to talk about is the Juggling trailer.
It's the beat drop.
The Juggling trailer or the Raiden Shogun trailer, I think those two are where like Genshin just went like all the way up there. Like that his trailer still gives me goosebumps when I watch it.
It does. Well, the thing is, like, Zhongli's gives me goosebumps, but Nahida's makes me cry. Like, I don't know what it is about it. It's just like the way that one climaxes too. Like, I love it.
Yeah, they really.
I want to see a graph. No, I've seen a couple of these ones. I just want to see a graph of like, Genshin downloads after these, because I know that when they do the banner drops, they have like, oh, this is how much revenue the banner makes, right? I just want to see trailer wise, like how much bump in like new players get out there, because they are extremely well produced. So
they are.
They're awesome. Yeah.
Proper trailers. But I think going back to something that we mentioned earlier, maybe we can clarify a bit for some of our viewers who might not be so sure on this. Like content creator, guide maker, theory crafter, I guess in your opinion, what are there? I guess a lot of them are intertwined, but how do you see the differences in terms of roles?
I think that, well, my categorization for content creators are those who, because usually content creator, well, it can range from like text or blog content to photo content, like on Instagram, to video content. I think that content creators, they really, they have goals with their content. Like, you can have content creators who do it just for fun, but then I think that those who call themselves content creators have goals for, it might be views, it might be money, it might be subscribers, it might just be community, right? Like the goals can vary, but if it's something that you are like consciously working at, not just on the side, upload it, here you go, even if it gets one or two views, as long as someone is watching it. So someone who's a content creator is someone who really puts meaning into their content. So, even if one person watches this or one person subscribes, if you think of yourself as a content creator, then that one person is very valuable to you. That one subscriber is very valuable to you. So when it comes to guide making, I guess that's pretty straightforward. Like, you're someone who makes guides, and I see myself as a content creator guide maker because I put a lot of purpose into my content and my guides, and also my content creation is my livelihood. So aside from like getting personal joy out of it, like I do depend on it for money. And of course, that's not every content creator situations. Now, I do rather use those terms instead of theory crafter, because like, even though for my guides, I do personal theory crafting. Like I do personal spreadsheets, I do personal testing and some maths and some computations. But I kind of distinguish myself, or rather, I kind of think myself in a different group from like the Kaching main theory crafters, or even Migo, my friend who helps me a lot with the theory crafting of my videos, because what I do isn't usually as extensive or standardized. So I guess for some specific context, what Kaching Mains does and what certain theory crafters do is that they standardize their builds. Like they say X substats, Y other substat, and then like testing with these other, they go through a lot of different conditions, and then they come up with theoretical numbers, and these these end up covering like a pretty wide range of situations, or rather they make sure that they put in all the disclaimers and things like that. And even though I do like my own computation spreadsheets, it's usually not to that extent. So what I usually do are more general stats, more general like more general situations. They're not necessarily like all the way in depth. And what I do is that I work with those theory crafters who do go in depth to make sure that my guide content is still grounded on that theory. And of course, I do a lot of practical testing too, because like what theory can't cover, practical testing can, even though a theory crafted spreadsheet can say that this character can reach this potential. Like if you actually play test it, sometimes it feels like crap to actually reach that potential, because like sometimes characters are clunky and things like that. So, I don't know. I just feel like the ones who are in the group of theory crafters, like they are kind of a different caliber, is what I like to think of it as. And even though I do make supplementary like crafting, and then I can also do like general computations. I do consult a lot with those who can do it better than me.
I think it's really interesting as well, like this side of Genshin that a lot of people don't realize, or at least like I actually didn't realize that people were playing Genshin to this level until I started like getting more involved in the community. So I guess for pure context, for people who are listening who don't really know Genshin, I suppose like the only really challenging content for most people is like the Abyss. And then you've got theory crafters and people who are really serious about like tightening their rotations and making them clear it as fast as possible. And then the Abyss does reset every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then so it's like a different set of opponents, and then again you have to like theorize like entire new teams. But then I think like at least for me, when I consume your guides, it's like I just want to be able to clear Abyss, or I just want to be able to do what I can with the limited resources I have. So it's not again, like to your point, like not as precise or not as like all the way to the end that some theory crafters, some players might play it, but it's sort of like just enough for me to still enjoy the game, still not lose my mind over like artifact farming, just to kind of like clear Abyss.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of being a guide maker. I guess another job of guide makers is to filter through the information that theory crafters generate, and then, of course, make it digestible. And one thing that I've kind of realized over my course of guide making, and also translating those theory crafted information into like digestible content, is that, not everyone needs to know everything. Because not everyone wants to know everything. It's like when you're in school and like you're being explained a math problem. You don't need to know like the certain name of the law that led to this solution. You don't really need to know how that mathematician came up with that thing. You just want to know like the ABC steps of how to solve it, right? So the theory crafters, they do a good job actually of making their own text guides and sometimes video guides as well. But that is something I found in the community. Like, yeah, you can theory craft all this information, but like for the general audience, not everyone is going to want to read all of it.
I think that's where I come into like the picture as well, right? Because it's like, as somebody who plays Genshin extremely casually, right, and these kinds of games extremely casually, it's one of those ones where it's like, hey, if you pull a character, I just want to know, I want to make this character as fully optimized as possible, but not to the point where every single technicality and every single percentage is hyper maxed out, right? So again, I feel like it's interesting, and maybe this can kind of come back as you as a content creator as well, right? But it's like the sifting through of information there, where I love how you mentioned that you still verify, you still make sure that your content is authentic in a way that it's a true representation of what other people might be doing, although it might be a little bit less complex, right? But it really is about filtering it to a larger audience, right? Because it comes back to like, people, I think, so many people talk about like Genshin and Hoyoverse, like the type of games that they make. So many people can play them in so many different ways. There's not one way to play those games, right? And there's like level of commitments that are different. There's like investment there's a delta in investments. There's a delta in so many other things, right? But I feel like it's fascinating as a guide maker, where it's like you are really the kind of like last mile to like the casual audience too, where you probably get a larger amount of like consumers consuming your video because it appeals to a larger array of people. But at the end of the day, it's also just helping out newer folks get into the community and kind of like pulling them through, right? But maybe as it relates to your content too, Sevy, I'm so curious. It's like from a guide perspective and maybe from a theory crafting guides and all the technicalities of it, like what was the type of video that blew up for you when you realized that like, hey, this is kind of like what the audience is really receptive to? Was it a guide? Was it something like super in depth? Or like what was it for your channel? What was the first video on your channel that like cemented you as like, wow, people are really responding to my content?
It's actually a video I would consider a little stupid these days.
Please, I'm so excited for this.
It was a build for a physical DPS Chi-Chi.
Oh, okay.
That means nothing to me. I'm so sorry.
I mean, Chi-Chi herself is a meme anyway, right?
So exactly. Chi-Chi is already a meme by herself. So I had a video in I think 1.5 or 1.4 where I talked about how Chi-Chi with her normal attacks, if you stack on this build, she can do a lot of physical damage. And yeah, looking back, it's not the best video that could have blown up, but it kind of did anyway, because I think that it did kind of capture a casual audience that was looking for, because the interesting thing about Genshin players is that if you're a rather casual player who doesn't really care about what teams are the most meta, your objective is how to make your favorite character deal the most damage. And at that point, like the people that found that video were people who love Chi-Chi. So even though Chi-Chi's a meme, she still does have people who love her, which is great. And that's why they liked the video, because they were like, yeah, see, I told you, Chi-Chi can do damage. Of course, I would say something a little bit differently these days. I would probably give some different advice also, because we have a lot more different characters to choose from. Chi-Chi is somewhere there, like okay.
I understand this so much as like a Toma main. Like the amount of times I've searched and Google and YouTube just to prove people wrong, like Toma best build, Toma highest damage, Toma DPS build, and I find like one video where like one situation he does like 300,000 damage. I'm like, see?
Yeah, exactly.
It might only happen 1 in 10 times, but it happens.
It happened. On the topic of silly videos, I wanna bring this one up. So you got married to Alhaitham, right?
Yes, I did. My mods ministered it. Yeah.
You wanna talk us through it? I know Arief hasn't seen it, but I've seen it.
I have not. I get like, for maybe again those that might be consuming the 20th podcast and don't know, like Alhaitham is one of those like secret words here on the 20th podcast, because when Alhaitham dropped, like Rino was just, I've never seen Rino like more enamored. Yeah, just like frothing at the mouth. Like I don't know if this is gonna make the cut, but the first instance that I had of seeing Alhaitham in game was Rino zooming in onto his crotch area, and it was just like, and it was a very significant difference from other characters, but like very worthy. Like there was definitely a character designer that was like, we're gonna make this particular area a little bit like more significant. But that's my introduction to Alhaitham. Please, Sevy, like I need to know what went down
at the wedding.
What went down at the wedding? Well, the wedding itself was actually okay. Like, so my mod prepared his Serenity pot with a lot of beautiful furniture and like a photo shoot area actually with like a lot of glowing plants, and it had a trellis and a gazebo and everything. So we had a little photo shoot there. He also prepared an area with like a honeymoon house that also had an onsen, so that was great. And then there was the cathedral area where we actually like did our vows and stuff. Now, what pissed me off a little bit was when we had the renewal of vows, aka when Alhaitham's banner reran, because Alhaitham gave me such a hard time bringing home his last 2 constellations that I felt like he was kind of pissed at me. And and I was like, okay, what was the difference between his first run and his second run? And the answer was that his roommate had become playable. And I feel like Alhaitham has a very interesting relationship with his roommate. So TLDR, like the wedding was great, but like I don't know if we've had a falling out at this time. But Alhaitham remains one of my, if not my favorite character in the game. And it's gonna take a lot for someone from Fontaine to overtake that.
I just remember seeing the announcements about the wedding. I was like, oh, okay. And then like the wedding album as well, the photos. I'm like, this is amazing. Like Genshin players and their creativity and their dedication to like resinless content is just like unbelievable. It was a really beautiful teapot. So shout out to Sevy's mod for crafting that whole space. I think
Yes.
I think he could they could probably advertise it on like Fiverr.
I know,
right? Like get married in this teapot kind of thing, and then he like sets it up for you. It's like
Yeah, it was
Vegas.
really good. Yeah, it's an events place generally.
On to other highlights in your career. So you were at CONQuest recently, right? Was that a key highlight for you?
I think that CONQuest is a key highlight for me because it's one of the times that I willingly go out as Sevy and like hope to meet viewers, because like I do go out a bunch, like I do touch grass. So but like
breaking news, everyone. Sevy touches grass.
But it's not every time that I want to like be seen and like be approached as Sevy, you know. It's funny that I should say that because it's not like it happens often anyway.
Yeah, I was going to say, no, like have people like come up to you? Because again, like maybe a sub question under this, right? Under like, you know, big moments in your career over the past couple of years is like you're a Southeast Asian content creator. So you're here in Southeast Asia, right? But I mean, again, with this whole internet thing, and we were just talking about this off recording as well, right? But with internet consumption, you really have a global audience at the end of the day if you're publishing on YouTube and publishing content that is global in general. But here in Southeast Asia, I guess like have people like recognize you when you're out in public, when you're just like grocery shopping in a hoodie or something like that. And it's like, oh my God, I saw you got married to Alhaitham last week, you know? Like,
thankfully, no. I mean, nothing in like my casual everyday, like go out for lunch or go do errands. But it has happened like when I go to events that involve like fandoms and creatives. So aside from CONQuest, which is the big one because, you know, it only happens like once a year. It's not going to happen anymore. But those are the big ones where, okay, there are really events dedicated to Genshin Impact and then like there are creators there. So I say that I'm going and then, you know, I actively let people know that if they see me, it's okay to approach me. The other time that I've gone out and been recognized is when I went to Comic Get, which is a local comics and art market convention. So the nice thing about, or the fun thing about those art conventions and markets these days is there's a lot of Genshin Impact merch. There's a lot of, you know, Genshin fans. So if I go there and I actually, you know, fix myself up a bit because I don't usually wear makeup outside, then like I do get recognized a little bit, and you know it's always fun. It's always fun to meet viewers because it's hard to actually feel the impact of, you know, the guides. I see the views, but then it's obviously different when someone tells you that, oh, your guide actually helped me like do Spiral Abyss or build this character. When they say it in person, like thankfully I get a lot of nice comments from that. But when people say it to me in person, it's a totally different feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as well from like a fan or like a consumer perspective, it was really cool to see you kind of like be on stage with a lot of the other big Genshin creators too, and like kind of see like, you know, everyone's worlds colliding and all. That was like such a sweet moment. as well.
That was huge. Like, I was really genuinely honored to be up there on stage, and it was fun. Actually, it was fun because they had us do a boss rush, and I don't do a lot of streamer collab events, mostly because I'm shy and because they usually happen in American time zones. But actually doing that kind of activity with people that I look up to is really, really fun.
That's awesome. In terms of, I guess, like with Genshin creators, you know how some people, there are like some like awesome takes, there are some like cancelable takes. I thought the three of us could do a round of some of our worst Genshin Impact takes.
That's actually going to take some effort for me because I have done a conscious effort of like filtering those out for myself.
No, because it is funny, right? It's like, as somebody who like creates content exclusively on Genshin, it's like, it's not that you don't want to anger the community or like the game or anything like that, right? But I just feel like it's one of those ones where some people have some takes about the game, right? Mm-hmm. But it's a funny one because for me, it's always the one that I feel weirdly, one celebratory thing about Genshin is that people feel so strongly about characters and people feel so strongly about the community, and like, there's people that like characters alike and characters dislike and all that kind of stuff, and it's all a joke at the end of the day, right? But I distinctly remember, again, it goes back to my thing where it's like, when I remember I was telling people, it's like, oh, I just want to pull Jean, it's like, I can't, and then everybody was like, really, Jean, like the bottom of the barrel kind of option, like that's your type, RF, like really? And I was like, I didn't know this was such a cancelable like thing. It's like, I just like her, man. Like, so I feel like mine aren't as spicy as a casual like Genshin player, but I just love Jean. But Reno, yours is like, give me one that's like not Toma related. Like everybody knows you love Toma, and it's like, but what's a cancelable Genshin take that you have?
I think a good cancelable take from Genshin. I'm a Toma main, but I also main Ayado. But I don't like to play him because when he sucks his boba in the English VA, it's really loud and really egregious. It's like awful. It's so bad. And I don't know what happened like in the Japanese one, and in like he's so silent about it. But it's like, do they think like the English player base would like benefit from hearing him go like
really?
Yeah. I think now you kind of hear it. So like every time he comes on, I'm like, and I'm streaming, I'm like, I gotta shut up, like please, or like I'll just switch characters.
I've never heard him in the Japanese dub. I don't know how quiet he is. I always hear the English dub. That's amazing.
All right, so here you go. Come on, time to air out the dirty laundry.
Okay, honestly, this is like a dicey. This is a bit of a dicey topic because it can like vary culturally, but I honestly think that characters should that people should accept if characters present differently than their mental idea of them. Yeah, like, and honestly, because some people have problems with the Fatui being evil and like not wanting them to be playable, but I personally think that even if a character is evil, like, for one, it's fiction, so that's like the only place to be comfortable with being able to play an evil character, and two, it lets you be a bit more critical of your own moralities. Like, you don't have to shut out everything that makes you uncomfortable. In fact, you should embrace it. And we have characters in Genshin that aren't completely likable and aren't completely good either. We have like a big harbinger coming up, Arlecchino, and she may be very deranged and crazy and evil. Like, we don't know until the story unwraps itself. But even if she is, and then she becomes playable, like, I don't think that her being evil should be like a core reason for saying that this character shouldn't exist, because I do think that like uncomfortable and scary and evil characters should exist because they make things more real.
I find it so interesting that this even needs to be said, but like I 100% also see that in the Genshin community. I mean, in all communities as well, there's always going to be like a group of people who 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 are uncomfortable with certain characteristics, but it's like the world itself, like our day-to-day life is not perfect. Not everyone is good. And Genshin as a action adventure kind of story is a tale about good versus evil in a lot of cases. So
Yeah.
how can we demonstrate the triumph over evil if there is no evil?
Exactly. Yeah, and there will be gray areas too, like people like to talk about their favorite character, Zhongli, and then someone says, "Oh, but in his like Archon days, he killed a lot of people." And I'm like, "Okay, but in history, come on, name a famous person like who was a leader of something and then didn't end up, who was like completely good and clean in their time. You can't."
Yeah.
What I think fascinates me a lot from your answer is like, first of all, like my cancelable take was so stupid now compared to like what you said, and I like so dumb. Yeah, it's like goddamn. No, but I think one fascinating thing that you said here, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this too, is kind of like just the Genshin community as a whole, right? Like it's one of those ones where we joke about fandoms nowadays, and how aggravated fandoms can be, and like pleasing the fandoms or like saying something that would like anger a fandom, if you will, or a subsect of a fandom. I'm just so curious because like it seems like the Genshin community like is a life on its own at some point. And like you said, they project a lot onto characters, they project a lot onto the things from like fiction coming from this company. But as a creator, Sevy, I'm so curious, as somebody who engages a lot with the community, like are there things that, like I said, like are there things that you don't bring up in your videos because you're afraid of angering the community? Or like how do you see the like community expectations in general with content that you create specifically for the Genshin fandom? And I know this can be replicated to fandoms, multiple fandoms outside of Genshin as well, but as a creator who creates videos, like what are your thoughts on that, like the expectations that Genshin players have on your content?
I think that when it comes to guide making, like the number one thing that I avoid is saying that this character is bad. Like, unless it's like genuinely unsalvageable, which rarely ever happens. Like, what I would instead say is this character is not a priority to build. I don't really advise people to like spend all their primos on this character. And I think that it's important to especially say why. Like, I'm going to avoid saying that this character is bad because honestly, in Genshin Impact, you can always argue that no matter how unmeta or how less strong a character is, you're still going to be able to play with them. You can still play through the open world with them, and they might be a very fun character. But since I do make guides that are for strengthening accounts or strengthening character builds or strengthening teams, like I do have to put like certain softer disclaimers that like, okay, this character isn't the best. You're going to have to put in more effort to make this character feel stronger and things like that. So it's a lot of trying to soften those very hard lines and instead just giving people like a way to enjoy their character more. I think that when it comes to making or when it comes to video content, like I'm very careful about avoiding statements that would make people feel bad, right? Because it's true that people have like personal relationships with their characters, and if you make a character sound bad, that could make the person feel bad about the character. And like that's just kind of how the dynamic ends up being. And of course, I don't want people to like have negative takeaways or have less enjoyment just because they like this character. And the Genshin community in general, like I do see, how strong-willed they can be, how opinionated they can be, and it's a lot. Like it's a lot to navigate through, which is why I'm often very careful about it. Like I think I talked a little bit on the Kaching Main's podcast about how I usually don't like give character ratings. I don't say this is a bad character, and like you can say that, okay, I'm being too safe, like I'm being too gentle about this, or I'm being too scared about this. But honestly, to me, it's just that one, I avoid drama. I don't want anything to, I don't want to like get involved in that. Other people can do that. Like, I just don't want to. And two, like, I'm here to help people with their characters. I'm not really here to give a judgment call on whether or not they like a character. So that's totally up to them. And like, I would say my personal opinions are my own and things like that. But generally the content is just there to help people.
Yeah, I think the only people who are more politically correct than politicians, I feel, are like Genshin guide makers. like not even just you, but like when I consume like say like a Zyok's video or something like that, like the amount of times he has to go, but it's up to you if you want to do it. I'm just saying that I wouldn't do it. Like, and he repeats it like 3 more times at the end, and it's like it's not even like anything about being repetitive. It's just like, wow, you need to put all those disclaimers because one person's going to come in and be like, how dare you insult my Dea? How dare you insult my Chi-Chi, my Toma? You're awful. You destroyed my life. Things like that.
Yeah.
There's so much, but to close on that particular topic, right? There's so much beauty in what you said where it's like, my content exists for you to enjoy your character more. Right. And like, there's that uplifting spirit of why, again, this is not super, I don't know it because I'm not terribly plugged into the Genshin community, but fandoms can get extremely opinionated and wild and, aggravating and, borderline inappropriate sometimes when when they talk about like, coming after content creators or like judging other people's takes or whatever. Right. But at the end of the day, I feel like what I love about this kind of content of this community is that there's this subsect of the community where it's like, dude, like enjoy who you want. I'm going to make these videos and allow you to enjoy these characters, but it's like to each their own, and that's why a game as large as Genshin and the options of Genshin allow, I think, a little bit for that. So I think there is a like just beauty in what you said there, where it's like, dude, just do your own thing, but like I'm not gonna knock down at you. You enjoy you, man. I know. Rino, we'd love to get to some audience questions, but before we get to some like audience questions, I know there's it's just some quick other ones we wanted to ask. Rino, do you want to jump in there?
I think like I have a quick one, which would just be like, so Genshin's been sort of like your main genre for the longest time, and now Star Rail has come along as well. Like, how has it been in terms of the diversification of content? Because I know you did a bit of Tower Fantasy, but I think all of us kind of fell off that pretty quickly. But Genshin and Star Rail have been like your two most consistent sort of pieces. Like, has it been quite challenging? Is there managing two different games, or are you enjoying it?
It was difficult at first managing bringing Star Rail into the mix because I feel like my audience really was clinging to my Genshin content. So it was a little hard converting them to Star Rail content and like bringing in more Star Rail viewers because at that time, I think I'm not sure if I was under the weather or if I was a bit preoccupied, but I wasn't able to like ride the Star Rail train as fast as everyone else was, like in that first 2 weeks of release, which made it harder for me to catch up. And when I realized that I was having a hard time, kind of went back to basics, and I was like, okay, what is it that got me onto the Genshin train? And it was character guides. So during that time, a lot of content creators were going into like what to do at Trailblaze level 45, how to spend your Trailblaze power, how to get through Simulated Universe or Memory of Chaos and things like that. But I went straight to character guides. Not to say that others weren't. Sorry, microphone. Not to say that others weren't doing it already, but I kind of just skipped some of those extra beginners videos and just went to character guides because I feel like, people are always going to be looking for those. If it comes up in the search results and it gets viewed, then that's great. And right now I have been doing a lot of Star Rail because there are still more characters to cover. There are still new characters coming out. And also, it's a little less stressful making Star Rail guides, actually, because the actual gameplay, you get to casually press buttons, like take the turn, do the skill. Whereas in Genshin, I kind of have to like,
all sweaty, right?
Yeah, I have to sweat a little bit, like when it comes to Spiral Abyss. So there's a little less stress involved now that I've gotten into the rhythm of Honkai Star Rail. And actually, with Genshin and Fontaine coming up, I'm gonna have to like warm up again and be ready to sweat through Abyss with a bunch of new characters. So the balance, I think that it's gotten there, but Fontaine is probably going to force me to rebalance some stuff again.
Yeah, I think I have to say kudos to you for your your Abyss videos where you use only 4-star characters. I'm like, oh my god, how many times have you had to reset this level? Like seriously,
So
like,
many.
salute to you.
So many.
Yeah.
I have one about like maybe my last question coming from me, right? Is like the I want to touch on your aspirations as a content creator, because guide videos, I think we're in such a special place in the internet where guide videos no longer are coming, I think, exclusively from your IGNs, your GameSpots, your fandom, whatever have you, right? Like a lot of creators are filling in for that kind of type of content. But
Yeah.
I also know that you recently launched the podcast, right?
Yes.
Sevy Talks podcast. And I think it's such a natural progression of, hey, if you know me from guides, if you know me from Genshin content, let's talk about the ecosystem and let's bring on some guests as well. So, obviously we'll have links for that podcast as well. And like, it's such an awesome space for the community to kind of consume that kind of stuff as well. But I guess, Sevy, my question is, where do you go from here, right? Like, have you achieved all the things that you wanted to achieve in terms of like the guide making? Like, do you think you've got a stride? This podcast seems to be an experiment of, hey, this is like a newer kind of area, but there is some overlap. Like, where does the channel and where does your content move from here? Or are you still going to continue like where you are right now?
I think that you're right that it is a bit of an experiment, because for a long time I've been wanting to try out a non-guide form of content. And the first form that I was thinking was video essays, because I watch a lot of video essays. But then I kind of thought about it and I realized that the process of making a video essay becomes very similar to making a guide, because it's a lot of writing and researching and revisions. And obviously I didn't want to do the same thing. And which is why I came across the idea of a podcast. So for the what's next question, like I do plan on continuously making guides for as long as Genshin keeps releasing new characters. And I guess at this point, I will say the same for Star Rail right now. But the goal, or my goal, is to find other types of content outside of those guides that I can like reproduce and feel a bit more like change of pace at. So whether it is going to be the podcast, and I don't know if I'll be able to sustain the podcast for as long as I'm doing the guides. But if it isn't the podcast, or if the podcast ends up like not being the long-term answer, then I will probably find something else. I'm not sure what it's going to be. It might be like longer streams. It might be stream challenges. It might be some other casual form, and it might not involve gaming. Like I've toyed with the idea of vlogging, but then not really sure how to integrate that into my channel or to start a new channel. The usual like content diversification problems of a content creator. So I guess the main thing is that I don't want to get stuck just in like one type of content, because I have been there for about 2 years or so, and I feel like it's time to try new things. So yeah.
Yeah, just so funny. Reno was just like bobbing her head. I thought she was going to unmute there for a second, but no, I think my thing was more like I love that perspective. I think it totally makes sense. But again, as creators like ourselves as well, I think we always have, any creator has that on the top of their mind. But so long as you're energized, so long as it's like inspiring to you and it also serves the community, those are like the hardest overlap, right? Like fulfilling yet serves the community. But I think we're excited. I mean, like my favorite thing, just to plug the podcast a little bit, is like I think your first episode was also around Genshin Burnout, and I think it spoke to not only like hardcore Genshin players but also the casual Genshin players as well, and just like giving that peace of mind or just like alternative perspectives. So I think I love that. That's why we started the 20am podcast, because like of that podcast format, it's like a bit more casual, a bit more like transparent. But just more power to like you for trying out a bunch of other stuff.
We got some cool questions here. Yeah. So I'll read them off. Most of these are from Twitter. So we've got one from Always Bored @_nme, and their question for you is, what's one feature you want Genshin to take from Honkai Star Rail and put in the game, and what's one feature you want Honkai Star Rail to take from Genshin and put in their game?
I think that I want Genshin to get Honkai Star Rail's self-modeling resin.
Oh, that's a good
Artifact
one.
grind is like the worst, and Star Rail having self-modeling resin was probably like one of the major upgrades from Genshin. And then what I would want Star Rail to take from Genshin is probably the Serenity Pot, but I feel like that might be in the works already. Like it's kind of hard to imagine that Hoyo would keep Star Rail teapotless or like furnitureless. I don't know if that makes sense. But yeah, I feel like because the Astral Express, you know, you have Dan Hung's room, you have March 7th's room, and then you don't really get to see
The rest
MC's
of it.
room. Yeah. So I feel like MC's room having it being able to decorate, yeah.
Yeah, that does sound like it's coming up. Yeah, the train just leaves like so many options for like customization, and then like how when you do the character quest and they join the train and you can see them hang
Yeah.
out there. That's very cool. I mean, for me, the one feature I want Star to take from Genshin is just put Toma and Star Rail.
Don't do that. Can we be serious for once, Rino? Come on.
This is a serious request. Someone from Hoyless could be listening right now, and they'll be like, "Oh my god, brilliant idea!"
We haven't thought of that before.
Will you accept him as an NPC in Star Rail?
I'll just hang out with him all the time. I'll just be there permanently next to him.
I mean, with the mythos of the lore, it's very real. It's like quite possible, you know. So
yeah. Next question we got, it's from Migo senpai. Yeah, very very serious question.
Okay.
Okay, quick. Pineapple or no pineapple on pizza? If Alhaitham chooses the opposite of your choice, would you still marry him?
I'll take pineapple and yes. I can survive without pineapple and pizza.
Unless you have like a divorce ceremony in the
if I do, I'll serve him the pineapple pizza.
Yeah. Arief, do you want to ask the third question?
yeah, I think we've got one from Eds, EDZ, Daster Gaming with Eds, and it says, "Hi Sevy, I wanted to ask these during your CONQuest community panel, but we ran out of time. The first one is, what is the best thing, or is there anything you miss about being a small content creator? And then the second question is, what's the best feedback you've gotten as a content creator?"
I think that what I miss from being a small content creator is probably, I think that as a small content creator, there's a lot less pressure because once you're a big content creator, like you get a lot of requests for different content. Like do this character guide next, cover this topic, do this and that. And of course, like I do want to meet those requests, and usually meeting those requests translates to more views, but then sometimes I have my own roadmap of what to do. And sometimes going by that internal roadmap nets less views. And of course, like views is an important analytic. As a small content creator, the contrast isn't as large. Sure, if you do more popular topics, then that's going to get into the, get more views because of like suggestion, click-through rates, SEO and stuff. But then if I, as a smaller creator, there's like less pressure, I guess, to conform. It can kind of go both ways. Sometimes if you're a small content creator, you are pressured to conform in order to grow. But I think that generally you can look at it different ways.
And the best piece of advice that you've gotten in your content creation journey?
Best piece of advice that I've gotten. I think
Don't
okay,
read
let
the
me think on
comments.
that one.
Don't read the YouTube comments.
Don't read the YouTube comments. That's a funny one, actually. That is good advice. I think that some good advice I've gotten is, yeah, it's comment related. It's just to filter out the YouTube comments. You have YouTube comments from viewers who obviously didn't watch the whole video. You have comments from viewers who have never watched a video of you in your life. And you have comments from viewers who are like sexist or just, weird in general and not in the good way. So being able to filter out those comments is a skill and something that people need to hear. Just It's just to be reminded that everyone kind of needs to do it.
Yeah. I just want to reflect on the time that one dude called me a neck-bearded gaming like person that has no opinions, and it's like, do you really have a neck beard? I don't think so. So like, just incorrect dig, man. And then maybe another one like from Styra 101. Let's stay real for a second here. So it's like it's a funny kind of like personal like real question. It's like, Sarah's asking, how does one juggle adulting, streaming, and making YouTube video content? Like, this is like the magical kind of question. Like, how do people like you operate, you know?
How do people like me operate? With a lot of like quiet in between. I think, okay, so like when it comes to adulting day-to-day life, I think a lot of my adulting struggles have actually been in transitioning from college to this as a job, because I just recently finished college. And a lot of the realizations I've had like in adulting do have to do with like managing a job that you have to work on every day. And you know, this might sound like a little bit childish or inexperienced of me, because I am inexperienced. And I also kind of grew up with shelter. I kind of had a sheltered childhood because my parents were a bit protective of me. So there was a lot of hand holding in my childhood, essentially. So learning to grow out of that has been my adulting process. Like realizing that, okay, no one is going to give me like direct feedback on my video script before I publish it. I'm going to have to wait for the comments. And if the comments come and it's bad, then that's on me. You know, like I'm not going to have someone guiding me every step of the way before I submit a paper or before I submit a project. And that's kind of been tough, because then I have to learn to trust my gut. And I also have to learn to push myself to do better, because sometimes I don't know what better is until you get there, you know, until you do achieve better. So I feel like trying to have an internal process and an internal motivation has been a large part of me learning to adult. When it comes to day-to-day things like, I don't know, doing your laundry or making sure you have food, like those are definitely life skills that you need to pick up. Thankfully, I don't live alone, so I have people who share, you know, this house. I have like some family members as well who help around, because that's just the Asian way that things are done, right?
Yeah.
It's not like you move out immediately. And juggling that process, it's a highly mental process, I feel, that can lead to burnout and being tired and exhausted of having to constantly reevaluate yourself. Like, it does help with the content creation and the streaming, but juggling the worst of it kind of comes down to letting yourself have that downtime in between to actually process it. You know, in between streaming or in between making videos, I let myself have a break, whether it's like watch a movie or like binge a series or play some Stardew Valley on my own, or like play a little, you know, like just do very different things, and tiny, quiet, different things, I think is the most important part. Because when you do have to go back to juggling it, then you're a bit more mentally prepared to like put yourself back into that headspace.
There's some really real like substance that you provided there. But the only thing in my mind, the takeaway was like, yes, Stardew Valley cures all.
Stardew Valley,
like,
guys.
It cures
everything will be
everything.
okay.
Yeah, like
It does.
Leah's art pieces will soothe all pains, you know. But no, like super, super important reflections there. I feel like it could speak to multiple people in whatever situations they may be. Rino, what are the last couple of questions?
A couple ones. We'll try and fire through them pretty quickly, but I feel like this particular question is going to be quite a long one. So Roz at Darling Roselle asks, "Hey Sevy, I'm a huge fan here. What's your process when trying out a new character? How do you know how to build them?"
Well, okay. This is a funny question. So first of all, you have to read the kit. Like, first of all, you have to do a lot of reading. It's okay. I guess it's kind of like developing your own framework for evaluating a character. I'm sorry if you hear the dog in the background in the actual recording. That's like a neighbor's dog. So first of all, like the question is, what is this character meant to do? Is this character meant to heal, shield, buff, deal damage off field, deal damage on field, or whatever combination of any of those things? Second, what is the character's element and what are the related reactions that that character can enable or trigger or facilitate? And then third is, what parts of the character's kit are the most important? Is it the normal attack? Is it the skill? Is it the burst? And then you want to think about, once you know that, what parts of the character's kit you're going to be using a lot, then you can think about, okay, how do you actually play them? Because if their normal attacks are important, then you try out their normal attacks. Are they smooth to use? Do you have to do this many normal attacks in this amount of time? But if they're using their skill, then you think about, is the skill easy to perform, or does it have extra steps to it? And then if it's the burst, especially, then you have to think about how much energy recharge do they need. So there is like a framework generally, and you can see that framework in my guide videos because it goes kit, constellations, artifacts, weapons, stats, and things, and then teams and things like that. So being guided by that framework, like this is generally what you want from a character. You want to know how to play them, how to build them, and how to have teammates for them. That's usually what I think about. And then some of the more specific things will be, how do they actually feel to play? Because a character can deliver a lot of firepower, but then they might not actually be fun to play, or they might be clunky, or there might be little issues in their kit that you need to work around. So yeah, those are the more specific things.
Yeah, it sounds like it's very methodological, I guess. Yeah. But the core of it's still also very simple. It just goes down to like understanding who the character is, how to play them, and then the 3 different attacks they do, and like which one is like what is the intention behind whoever's developing this character? Like how do they need to be played? All right,
Exactly.
we got one last question from Eisenham, I think, Agnostic Paladin, and it goes, Miss Ma'am, you can be so sweet. They're like
Miss
so
Ma'am.
polite. Miss Ma'am Sevy, do you have any plans on more collabs with Mr. Brax? Would love to see more of that.
I'd love to. I mean, I don't have anything concrete right now, but you know, Brax is a friend of mine, and we do like to tease different collab ideas every now and then. So we might have one soon. We'll see.
Yeah. That's awesome. All right, I think that's kind of it. We got through a lot today, Sevy. Thank you so much for your time. Lots of really interesting takes here. My personal favorite, obviously, the Alhaitham wedding. That was
so funny.
But yeah, do you want to shout out to any of your channels or anywhere people can find you next?
Yeah, you can find me on YouTube, SevyPlays. You can also check out my new podcast, Sevy Talks, which has its own playlist on YouTube and is also on Spotify. And you can generally find me on Instagram, Twitter, SevyPlays, and TikTok and Twitch, Sevy_plays. So thank you so much for having me, and hello to your community.
Like, if you're not subscribed to Sevy, we're like, what are you doing? If you're a Koyaverse, if you're like a Genshin Star Rail kind of like consumer, like do yourself a favor right here. Again, I'm a huge fan of podcast formats, so check that out as well. This is such a nice, pleasant conversation. Thanks for coming on, Sevy.
Thank you for inviting me. This was really fun. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, Arief, if we want to throw back to
my God, you did this to me every so the funny thing in our community, I guess, like the past 2 episodes, we throw it, like I've been throwing it to Rino. It's like, Rino, what was our last episode on? You know, and then Rino has to like, oh God, what did we do last episode? And now I'm going through that for it's like, what did we do last episode?
Get to it.
Last episode we covered. No, we didn't do 3.
We covered Zoo Tycoon.
Oh my God, we covered dead game franchises that we want to bring back to life, which may or may not include Zoo Tycoon, one of my personal favorite games of all time, or Neopets. In addition to Soul Reaver and all the like badass games that Rino played growing up. Check that episode out, everybody. It's a nice, cathartic, nostalgic episode. But check out the rest of our interviews as well if you're a Hoyoverse fan. We've got our Star Rail review. We've got an episode with Suling Chan, voice of Bailu in Honkai Star Rail. And rewatch this episode because it's an awesome conversation.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Bye.